O Shahanshah, Odenathus is dead. He's been murdered along with his son Herodes by his cousin Maeonius and his son Quietus. This so-called king who invaded your lands and pushed your army back to Ctesiphon for the Romans is no more. There are rumours that Zenobia herself was involved. They say she conspired with Maeonius to kill her husband and Herodes because she couldn't stand that her stepson would get more power than her own. The market where I sell my silk is full of these whispers. Merchants from all over come here to trade, and Tadmor has prospered because of it. Tadmor's position on the border means it's so important to Rome. From here they can trade beyond their empire, and the garrison here just shows how military important it is to them. I cannot be sure whether Zenobia truly conspired to kill Odenathus, but she was very quick to claim power for Vabalathus rather than Heronius and Timaeus. But because they're so young, she rules in their stead. She's claimed descent from Cleopatra and the Ptolemies, as well as Antiochus and Epiphanes. She's putting on the imperial mantle, the robes of Dido, and assuming the diadem in the name of her child. Meanwhile, there are many coups and counter-coups in Italy. Zenobia's taken advantage of this distraction. Whilst Rome's preoccupied elsewhere, they cannot protect the East. They leave it open for another to take control. I'll report back soon when I have more information. I have learnt more about this Queen Zenobia since my last report. She follows your great example in receiving worship and banqueting like the Persians, and yet she acts like a Roman emperor in public assemblies, wearing a helmet and girt with purple fabric and gems. She has the sternness of a tyrant, but the clemency of a good ruler. She acts beyond her gender, hunting with the eagerness of a Spaniard. She drinks with her generals, as well as Persians and Armenians, although this may be to get the better of them. She chooses to use a carriage, or walk for many miles with her soldiers instead of using a woman's coach. She makes her sons speak Latin even though she does not speak it herself. She is shaping them into the Roman mould, preparing them to be the kings of the East for the emperor. Word from the caravans is Zenobia has done something drastic. She wanted revenge on Dodima al-Abrash for killing her father, believing him responsible. She wanted to attack, but her sister Zabiba convinced her to be more diplomatic, and so she was more duplicitous, treacherous, and crafty. She invited him to Tadmor under the pretense of forming an alliance through marriage, suggesting as a woman she was too weak to rule. Jadima fell for it, as did many of his advisers, bar one, Cassir, who thought they should invite Zenobia to their court instead. In her letter she said, "Come to me, join my kingdom to yours, join my country to yours, and assume my power along with yours." I hear he was so delighted with the invitation he opposed any bad advice from these intelligent men of good sense, and instead listened to his nephew Amir, who encouraged this venture. He set out along the Euphrates with his best men, and was welcomed by Zenobia's messengers with gifts, but was soon surrounded by cavalry and taken to see the queen. When she saw him, she lifted her skirts to show him her braided hair, and he began to sense the treachery. She gave him a lot of wine to get him drunk, and then when they spilt his blood. She thought it was a cure for madness, but they had some respect for him, for they did not behead him. Instead, they cut the veins in his arms and let the blood spill into golden vases and bowls, for it had been prophesied that should a single drop hit the ground, his death will be avenged. So Zenobia soaked up the blood with her cotton from the perfume container. I will update you as soon as I can. I have news. I was selling my silk when I overheard. The Emperor Gallienus is dead, and the usurper Claudius is the new emperor. Whilst that Gallienus named Odenathus ruler of the East and supported Zenobia, she far surpasses him in courage and skill, and she rules with the vigour of a man. The Romans have noticed this too, and the new emperor is against her in the East, even though she seems to be looking for an alliance. She's not claimed to be Augusta, and she seems to be playing along with them, just like Odenathus did. I heard from the soldiers from the Roman garrison that upon Claudius' accession they chanted acclamations for him, including Claudius Augustus, set us free from Zenobia and from Vitruvia. They clearly see her as a threat, especially Victoria rising in Gaul. These women who are challenging empire. I believe if the Romans do not reciprocate soon, Zenobia may start looking east instead of west for support. This shift from Gallienus, who supported her, to Claudius, who is against it, may force her to take matters into her own hands. She wants power for her son, and for herself, but keep heart, Tadmor may be part of Roman Syria, it may look Roman with its columns and its temples, but their roots are still clear. They have not forgotten the East. They have assimilated our cultures, practicing their own form of Greek politics impacted by Roman imperialism. Their buildings are faced with marble traded here from across the Roman Empire and beyond. Their inscriptions are often trilingual, always in their own language, and sometimes with Greek and or Latin. Their clothing here is assimilation of all these cultures too. But, as Claudius denounces Zenobia's power, and cannot protect the East, she will only keep patience for so long. I believe we will not have long to wait before she acts. I'll report back soon when I have more information for you. I have another report for you. Despite the struggles on the frontiers of the Roman Empire and the wars between the Parthians and Rome, Tadmor's trade has not suffered, but altered, with routes changing to protect goods. We all have to pay tax to trade here. They put up an inscription about it, but as a silk merchant, I have to pay tax to the imperial revenue, not the local one. These taxes are reaching ridiculous levels to try and dig Rome out of its inflation. They've been debasing their coinage and are going into economic crisis. Perhaps protecting trade and taxation when money is failing is behind Zenobia's push for power. She wants to protect the East where Rome cannot. Claudius is busy fighting with Goths, and Zenobia has made a move in Arabia. Whilst the Romans are dealing with these risings and suffering barbarian invasions, their power is weakening, and Zenobia is taking advantage. I hear her goal is to take Egypt, but by taking Arabia, it will protect Zabdas as he enters Egypt. The Arabian governors were once loyal to Odenathus, but after his death became loyal to Rome. The city and garrison of Bostra was taken with some force. Arabia is now Zenobia's. I hear Zenobia sent Zabdas to Egypt because Timanges, an Egyptian, attempted to put Egypt under the governance of Tadmor. They entered via Pelusium before making their way on down onto Alexandria. The Roman governor there, Probus, was at sea dealing with pirates at the time, and an army of 70,000 soldiers from Tadmor and Syria, with barbarians that they had recruited, faced 50,000 Egyptians and took the country, leaving a garrison of 5,000 behind. Tadmor has taken control of Egypt and all of the east, as far as Ankara. I hear Egypt was lost for a short time, but quickly regained when they cut Probus off on a mountain near Babylon. Probus was taken and his forces killed by Timanagina's 2,000 men. They have eliminated Roman power there. Another merchant has told me that Claudius wrote to the Senate to tell them Zenobia has taken Egypt. Tadmor is control of the east. Aurelian has been made emperor. Claudius died of the plague, and Quintillus inherited the throne for a little while. However, Aurelian is a great general, and the soldiers declared him emperor. There are coins from Antioch with Vabalathus wearing a laurel crown of Roman general and not the Persian diadem, but then Aurelian is also there, wearing a radiate crown. Zenobia is showing Vabalathus has power as king, but the legends on them reserve Augustus for Aurelian alone. She's clearly hoping for the arrangement her husband had with Gallienus. The Antioch and Alexandria mints this year, 270, show Vabalathus and Aurelian with legends of Vabalathus' 4th year and Aurelian's 1st. Could this be a challenge to Rome? Could she be setting herself and her son up as equals? She seems to be pushing for power in the east, while still attached to Rome. Aurelian is busy subduing rebelling in the city of Rome, but he may march on Zenobia soon. She is preserving power in the east for them at the moment, but she will strike out on her own. Zenobia has a large part of the Roman Empire under her control now. Even their grain supplies from Egypt, which make up about 1/3 of their grain. Without this, Rome will starve, and it'll be difficult to control the people without giving them their grain. This is now a full usurpation of Roman power in the east. Tadmor grows ever more powerful with money from taxes on trade and their growing empire. Zenobia has struck out on her own. Probus has retaken Egypt. He drove out Tadmor's garrison and eventually drove them out of the country as a whole. News along the trade route is Aurelian is marching on Palmyra already. We all travel to Tadmor, bringing stories and information from our travels to trade. As Vabalathus and Zenobia take on more titles on their coins, including Augusti, and Aurelian's removed from coins in Antioch and Alexandria, tensions are rising. The coins coming from the mints this year show year 5 of Vabalathus and Zenobia Augusta. The fact that Zenobia has taken on the Augusta title along with Vabalathus shows it going against Rome. Zenobia looks somewhat like Gallienus' wife, Salonia. It's almost as if she's appropriating Roman imperial propaganda to demonstrate her legitimacy. It seems she's lost hope of power with Rome and is turning to the east. She's turning to you. I have word of Aurelian's march. All trade roads lead to Tadmor. Traders from all over have been coming here to trade as usual because of Tadmor's seat of civilization in the desert. These merchants are bringing with them news of the advance. My silk is important to Rome, and the prosperous Tadmor is where they come to get it, and they bring news too. No wonder this city is doing so well for itself, with all this trade of silk, spices and slaves. Tadmor is halfway between commercial cities, and its oasis makes it a prominent stop on the trade routes. We all come here. From these traders I hear that after Aurelian dealt with other frontier breaches and secured Rome from a revolt, he began his journey to Tadmor, and on this journey, Ankara submitted to him. He has defeated barbarians at Thrace and Illyricum. He has slaughtered Canabas and 5,000 other Goths, and he took Bithynia without struggle. I heard once he captured Tyana, he killed all the dogs, as well as the man Heraclamon, who betrayed the city to help Aurelian take it. Now he's marching with his troops to Emesa, where Zenobia waits with Zabdas. I anticipate a battle to come. Whoa! Aurelian has taken Antioch and Emesa. He's forced Zenobia to retreat back to Tadmor. Some of Zenobia's forces have taken a hill above Daphne in the hopes that its sheer drops and rocky face would obstruct Aurelian's advance, but it appears they were able to anyway. Many of Tadmor's soldiers fell and died on the rocks, or if they didn't, they were slaughtered by the Romans. There was a mighty battle at Emesa, where I must give credit to Aurelian for his tactics. Zenobia's forces totaled about 70,000, and were defeated by Aurelian's forces of a Dalmatian cavalry, Mosians, Pannonians, Celtic legions of Notcrium and Raetia, the Imperial Regiment, Marushian horse, Tyaneans, and even Mesopotamians, Syrians, Phoenicians, and Palestinians. Aurelian noticed Zenobia's cavalry, whilst were better horsemen than his own, were heavily armed, and so he took advantage of this. They feigned a retreat. They kept going and going to wear out Zenobia's forces. Once they were exhausted from the weight of their armour and the long ride, the Romans wheeled around and charged on them, galloping over the fallen soldiers. Zabdas and Zenobia knew they had to flee, and so they found a man in the city who looked like Aurelian himself, and dressed him in the imperial garb, before parading him through the city, claiming to have defeated him. By the time this lie was revealed, Zabdas and Zenobia had already escaped. Everyone says that Zenobia has not been disturbed by such a defeat. She's called a council to advise her on what to do next. I will see what information I can get and report back. I have news. As a silk trader, I often deal with Tadmor's wealthy at the market, and I overheard them speaking about what happened at the council. Some advised the queen to abandon Messa to Aurelian, because the city is friendly to Rome. She's also been advised to stay here, in Tadmor, where they can talk about what they must do and hold the city against Aurelian. Some low ramparts were built around the city in the last couple of centuries, but I'm not convinced they will hold out for long against the siege. You can almost hear Aurelian's forces approaching, and see the dust rising on the horizon. I do not know how long, or if Tadmor will survive. The people here are strong, and they believe it would be impossible for Aurelian to take their city. I doubt whether this is true. Tadmor is under siege. They're hoping the Romans will run out of provisions soon, but on my travels I've seen provisions being sent from neighbouring countries and throughout the province to them. I hear Aurelian sent a letter to Zenobia asking for her surrender, to which she replied Cleopatra would rather be queen than stay alive. The Saracens and Armenians have abandoned Zenobia and joined Aurelian's forces. I fear Zenobia's want for power, either for herself or for her sons, more than her life would be the downfall of Tadmor and its empire. She would be delivering it to the Romans. I hear she plans to flee to the Euphrates on a female camel to ask for your aid, to ask for reinforcements. I do not think Rome will remain challenged in the east for much longer. I hear Zenobia has been captured. There are a few stories going around. I am not quite sure which one to believe. Some say she never made it across the Euphrates before Aurelian's horsemen caught up with her and brought her back to him. Tadmor has fallen back into the hands of Rome anyway. She claims she never saw Gallienus and Claudius as emperor for the reasons behind her expanding power, but that she did recognise Aurelian. She wanted to become a partner in political power like Victoria in Gaul with her Gallic Roman Empire. Zenobia wanted a Tadmor Roman Empire. Apparently she's been spared and is to be marched through Rome as a victory trophy for Aurelian's successors over here. However, her advisors have suffered an ill fate. All of them, including Longinus, have been executed for advising a feeble woman. She plays the part very well. She was in fact a remarkable ruler who acted like a king. I've also heard other stories, saying she tried to flee Tadmor through a tunnel connecting the palace to her fortress Zenobia on the river, where Amir, Jadima's nephew, arrived at the city to avenge his uncle's death, and she poisoned herself by sucking on a ring so she could die a queen. I do not know which account is true, but Tadmor is no longer its empire. Here I am my reports. Syria is Rome's once again.